Few things get us much more excited than antlers, frankly. It's bone. It is bone that is grown each and every year unless there's an injury, and cast sometime before spring so that a new set of antlers, new set of bone can be produced. There's really two general genetic tendencies. I mean, everything in a rack originally is dictated by genetics. Unless something weird happens, this buck is going to, it is born with a cap. I'm going to just make this up. Let's say this buck right here, 210 inches max. No matter what happens, this buck will not get more than 210 inches from, just normal life and nutrition and that type of stuff. Sure, you can mess around with hormones or injuries and that can jack things up. But just plain genetic cap, all else equal and normal, he's going to be a 210 incher. This buck here, he's capped at 150 inches. He just plain is not going to get bigger than 150 inches. Obviously, I'm making this up. I do not know what these two bucks' genetics caps are. But what I'm getting at is nothing unless it is artificial is going to allow them to get larger than that. It is their genetic cap. It's their most natural antler they can pump. The catch is they almost never hit their genetic cap because of nutrition, stress, all sorts of stuff takes away. Then you have typical genetics. This here is a 4.5-year-old buck. Looks like at 5.5 it may or may not kick a little sticker there. That's just natural genetics. This here, also natural genetics. Yeah, it's got a little kicker there, it's got a split brow tine, but that is most likely just simply a matter of genetics. It has the genetic potential to kick some junk. Some bucks don't. You come to something like this. This very well may be a tick. Something as simple as a tick or an injury right here. Because what happens when these antlers are developing, they're covered with velvet. Velvet is a living tissue. It supplies the antler with the blood and nutrition it needs. Okay, but when injuries occur to velvet, such as a tick causing an infection, possibly right there, stuff like this can happen. Or it can simply be genetic based. Okay, one other very interesting aspect of all of this is here we have a genetically typical buck, most likely. But look right there. He shed part of his skull with the antler. What happens when that occurs? Well, all sorts of blood and hormones rush to that spot. This rack obviously is not going to be affected by that in any way, shape, or form, but when this happens, very often this side here absolutely explodes that next year. Because of all that blood, all those hormones rushing to that spot to heal that wound, it ends up feeding the antler and it can mutate and morph. And I am not exaggerating by saying something like this, which is it's not a bad shed. It's 65 and 2/8, 65 inches and 2/8. Okay, not bad. But I'm telling you, this right here can go ahead and cause a 20-inch jump just in this antler alone. The other antler will be about normal. But this antler, simply because of that injury, oftentimes absolutely gives you a 1-year morph where this thing explodes with all sorts of non-typical stuff. That said, when it's due to this, 9 times out of 10 the next year it goes back to a typical rack. And in this buck's case, odds are really, really good it's going to drop inches the second year after this occurred because this just artificially jacked him up. Antler characteristics are absolutely fascinating. They are, to a very large extent, dictated by genetics. Every buck is born with a genetic antler cap. They cannot naturally get larger than that unless something occurs, such as an injury like this. That injury can actually help them. But when they get hurt, when they get physically injured, mess up a leg, anything like that, that tends to also morph up their rack. Okay? So you have genetics and injury. Those are most commonly what produce this stuff right here.